I mean, the old adage was if your process is bad and you digitize it, you're going to have a bad digital process.
Yeah.
Okay. If you have a bad digital process today, because you made a bad digital process,
Yeah.
and you introduce AI to that, you're going to have a bad AI digital process.
And you just magnified it because now you
That's
just pour
it.
fuel on it.
It's an amplifier, John. It's an amplifier.
Right. Welcome to the Build to Grow Mindset and the BTG Mindset Podcast. I'm John Mackey, founder and CEO of the Mackey Group. This podcast exists for one reason. In the fire protection life safety industry today, demand is not the constraint. Readiness is. Backlogs are full, phones are ringing, consolidation is accelerating. And inside a lot of these businesses, growth feels heavier, not easier. The Build to Grow mindset is built on a simple thesis. Growth alone does not create value, discipline does. And the discipline lives across four pillars: people, process, technology, and reporting. Every month, this podcast takes one of those pillars and brings it to life, not through theory, but through the lived experience of the operators, leaders, and advisors who are actually doing the work. This month, we're on pillar 4, technology. And the topic is one I get asked about at every conference, every advisory engagement, every board meeting: the tech stack. What should it look like? How do you choose? And what happens when AI changes the rules? So I called the one person I trust the most on this subject, Nick Sandberg, the director of IT at the Hiller Companies, one of the largest fire protection contractors in the country. But Nick is not your typical IT guy. He started as a fire extinguisher technician in California in 1999. He worked his way through every field and operational role you can name: technician, lead, team lead, healthcare division manager, before building Hiller's internal inspection platform from scratch, on his own, on weekends. Nick brings something rare to this conversation. He's been the technician holding the phone in the field, and he's the one building the software that runs it. That perspective matters, and you're going to hear it today. If you're a fire life safety owner, operator, or investor trying to figure out where technology fits in your growth story, this one's for you. Let's get into it. The premise of this month's topic for Build to Grow is around technology, the importance of technology,
Mhm.
and the richness of a tech stack. In the Build to Grow blog, we talk about the things that an owner or reader needs to think through as they go make the decision around what they're looking for in a tech stack, the things they need to think through, the playbook or the step-by-step process is how you make a decision about it, what you should be looking for. So, Nick, I want to use this episode of the podcast to talk about some of the things that you've experienced with regard to, the evolution of technology, because you and I've known each other for 10 years, but knowing your background prior to you and I working together,
Right.
um, back in 2017 when Hiller bought American Fire. uh, and you
Coming
were
up on
talking
10
about how
years.
you just took Raspberry devices and put them on a fire alarm panel, trying to figure out how to make that panel smarter.
Right.
Right,
Oh
right.
man, that was a
Think of
cool
that.
project.
Think of that, right? So in that same vein, let's talk about the evolution of technology and specific to where does technology fit? And now let me back up. I think I'd be remiss if I did not share for the audience a little bit about your background. So, Nick, can you take us back, your specific to your career path in fire protection, to set context for the audience? Because I think it's
Sure.
very important for them to understand that you are not your prototypical
IT guy.
IT guy. So give them the backstory,
Right.
please.
Yeah, sure. And I'll do my best to make it brief. So I started in California in 1999, right out of high school. So it's been some time since I've been doing this, and I started off doing annual teardowns on fire extinguishers. Spent a lot of time doing fire extinguishers in California, almost 3 years doing it. So I got like 18 years worth of experience in the rest of the country, right? Again, that annual teardown,
Dog years.
it was brutal. Eventually, I found my way to Arizona where I started working as a fire alarm helper because one time I'd wired up a Firelight 5012 panel for a kitchen hood system that we were monitoring it through. Anyway, needless to say, it was I really lucked out. I got a chance to work for John and Ann Papuga for quite a few years, and just some of the best people on the planet. And
Absolutely. Yep.
I grew up at that place, American Fire Equipment Sales and Service, as it was called back then. And I started off as a helper. And my second day on the job, they put me at this hospital that had 59 networked notifier fire alarm panels. Um, I had no idea what I was looking at, no clue whatsoever. And so it was really trial by fire, right? I really had to learn a lot. I guess most of us have been in that situation as former technicians, I think. You just get in, all of a sudden you're out way over your skis. So you end up having to hit the books a lot. And that was really what I did. And eventually worked my way, continued to work in the healthcare space, worked my way into a fire alarm technician position, then a fire alarm lead, then a team lead, and then I started running our healthcare division. And that was all from 2007 forward. And in about 2010, 2011, the Joint Commission, so this phrasing that everybody in the fire life safety business knows, the accreditation body became much more involved in healthcare, and they changed our reporting tremendously. We went from having like these two-page reports that we could do anything with to these massive inspection documents. And I happened to have good handwriting, and that's the reason that I stayed.
Mhm.
Anyway, so I became this technician. I became a technician. Then I became a team lead for this group where the reporting and regulatory was super strict. And I felt the pain of every Excel spreadsheet that we did, every Word document that we filled out that didn't match. All of a sudden, I'd get a healthcare customer that didn't care, and then I have another healthcare customer that really cared. And hey, I looked at all 59 fire alarm panel reports you gave me, and you're missing two on your EP3 document. You're missing
Yeah.
two smoke detectors. Oh man. And then, we're chasing that down to try to figure it out, or we duplicated something. And so we ended up working on building our own application internally at Hiller to manage that process. And it ended up working out very well. But that was really my background in moving into tech, was because I got kind of bored looking at the fire panel when I was a technician and just started doing that stuff on the weekends. And that's how we ended up building our inspection platform. So my insight into how technology works in fire life safety is really coming from a technician and a really a service manager's perspective.
Yeah. Well, and I think it goes back to the point we had when we were started the conversation. I think the what's very important about you know one the use of and adoption of technology in your context is that you started in the field as a tech, knew nothing, and you put your hands onto a fire alarm panel at that hospital and said, "Oh my, I need to learn something here." So you got in the books and started reading it, and then through that process, you just knowing you, there's got to be a better way. 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 At the end of the day, better way for the how we report back to the customer because that's where we drive our value.
That's right.
But who's doing the work? The technician.
Oh man. And that's the thing is I've really struggled in my career to keep that focus on the technician experience.
Mhm.
And let's face it, 2007, a technician was a dime a dozen. I was a dime a dozen. You could have hired, I
Yep.
mean, I was lucky to get a job in 2007 and I was very grateful for it and I still am. Thanks, John. Thanks, Ann.
Yep.
Um, that being said, today technicians are the new oil and giving them a good work environment and giving them a good experience so that they can do what they're best at, right? I
Yep.
don't want to have technicians fighting with their applications. We want them to be able to inspect. We want them to be able to repair. We want them to be able to give good customer service and not be frustrated with the phone in their hand because of some hoop we're making them jump through. And
Yeah.
I can't say we've always wanted that, but we try.
We try. We try. I've been in a couple of those, rollout meetings with you, and the skeptics in the room are like, that seems a little bit too easy. I don't believe that. Let's see how this works, right?
That's right. There's
But
always a good reason why it won't work. There's always a good reason why it won't work. And I think if you the hardest thing about any kind of integration, rollout, application change, I mean, we just rolled out a new HRIS system. All of that stuff, it all boils down to getting the adoption up through end user, not just acceptance, not just engagement, but desire. You got to get them to want the tool. You got to teach them why this, or we've got a VP that says this, and it's really good. What's the why behind the what? Why are we doing it? What are we doing?
Yep.
and giving them the reason why it's good for them. What is this act? How is this going to benefit you? Because nobody loves you like you love you, right?
Right. Well, what's in it for me?
That's it. And I know that that's trite and it seems trite. I know it's a cliche, but frankly, these rollouts and these integrations and tech stack changes, not the whole stack, but the changes to the stack, they live and die on adoption and they live and die on the end users actually engaging with them.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
communication through those things is has been kind of the biggest sticking point and
Yep.
most valuable tool that we have
Yep.
so at
Yep.
least for me.
So let's talk a little bit about back to the question. When you look at the evolution of the tech stack, the evolution of technology in our business, when you look at um, that growth, um, what are some of the things that you looked at and said, wow, they've got it right? Or you can flip it the other way. I'll let you make the decision and decide you want to this. Or here's the decision I made that I wish I did that differently, and I've learned from that one. I'll let you decide which way you want to go with that.
um Let me be a little oh, this is hindsight's 2020 and
Always.
so I wasn't here at that time, so this is really kind of picking at you, so I apologize for that.
Oh, wait, I was in the room. I wasn't, only one of maybe 8 people.
So when we first rolled out service trade,
Yep.
um our initial integration with it and our initial rollout was here's this great tool, use
Mhm.
it. And I think at the time, what was that, 11 years ago now, maybe 12, was it 2014, 2015,
When
14?
Hiller rolled it out,
Yeah, I think it was
or
14.
when we rolled it out to American Fire.
Oh, no, this is when we rolled it out to all of Hiller. So
So
that's before my time. That's what I'm driving at.
yeah, so this would have been the spring or winter spring of 2014,
14. All right, there you go.
end of 13.
Yeah. So at that time, I think that the application kind of went out as a please use this. This is a great thing. Try it. And we created an environment through that of silos, lots of them.
Mhm.
Um, and not data silos, but operational silos. I use it
Yep.
this way. Well, I use it this way. Well, I use it this way. And full disclosure, some of those fingerprints are still here today,
Uh-huh.
and it's hard to exercise those um, because what's good for the branch sometimes isn't what's good for the enterprise,
Yep.
and that's a really tough place to navigate things. So our original integration with that, so all of that aside, the original integration that we rolled out was on this invoice to sales order inside of our ERP.
Mhm.
And that served its purpose for a lot of years, but it actually introduced a lot of complexity that actually was more painful than helpful. And you wouldn't have seen it from the surface, but it created inventory problems. It created timing problems. It created not quoting problems, but it created job completion problems, things that were just out of order because everything was in service to this sales order and the invoice coming out of service trade. And so it took us years to kind of unpack that and get our finger on how we might be able to improve that. And eventually, what we did is we looked at the job and we flipped it and said, well, the job is the promise to do work,
Mhm.
committing to do this work. That's when we need to start putting our inventory in, is the moment a technician uses it. That's when we need to get it into the ERP to say, hey, this is going to happen. This is going to be a real item. How else can you track your dollars and cents at the ticket level if you don't have a ticket,
Yep.
right? And so I would say that getting that done, that's all stuff that we've done within the last 2 years.
Yep.
My goodness, where would we be had we done that a few years ago, a few years earlier, right? So it's really about identifying where the integration should be from an early
Yep.
stage and being able to look where the needle is really going to get moved the most. Um, and sometimes we tend to integrate just to integrate.
Yeah.
Say we're integrated. Oh, we got an integration. We're good. We didn't even have customers integrated until 3 years ago across service trade and our ERP.
So I think a couple things I want to highlight. One is, and then we talk about it's in the blog, but we talk about what's important. Understand your culture first. All right. Old Hiller was 8 individual divisions.
Right.
There was not one company. Right. So that was one. And
Are
so
we
we
allowed
made
to say that we used to compete with ourselves? That's
I was told if you weren't competing against your neighbor branch and stepping all over them, you weren't working hard enough.
right, right. I'm so totally different culture.
Right. So that's number one. Number two, we made the decision on the software because of an acquisition that their software was getting ripped out. And so we had to make a quick decision as to what was going to come in. And, Service Trade made it, was early. I think Hiller was number three out of the customer list.
That's wild.
And Billy Marshall was willing to say, I'll do one branch at a time. I'll be with you side by side, and I will help you, even to the point where I will help you integrate it with your JD Edwards mainframe system.
And he did.
And he did. He even told the developer, the program manager for JD Edwards that, yes, we can make it talk to anything.
Uh,
Um,
and if anybody's wondering is if JD Edwards is a silver bullet for your tech stack, I will tell you right now, it is not.
yeah, something there too. So along the line. So again, the key thing here to take away for the audience is one, understand your culture. Number two, what's the driving factor point behind it, right? Why are you rolling out this software? And Nick, you hit it there in the end. First, what is your customer's expectation? Right? Are you able to make a
Right.
better customer experience because of the use of technology? Number one. And number two, how does it enhance your business? It shouldn't make it harder. It should make it a little bit easier. The word used earlier when we were talking about AI was amplify your business,
That's right.
right? And so you have to to understand, okay, what roles do I have in my organization? What's the skill set of my workforce? Do I have somebody in-house that can help me run this project? Do I have a Nick Sandberg? Yes or no? Most people don't have a Nick Sandberg, right? So, but do I have someone who can own it? And then do I have the discipline to write a workflow or work process and communicate and make sure everyone follows it? And
Right.
then that's just without even turning the computer on, paper and pen. Just walk a work order through your office.
If your process is bad
Yeah.
today,
Yes.
what I mean, the old adage was if your process is bad and you digitize it, you're going to have a bad digital process.
Yeah.
Okay, if you have a bad digital process today, because you made a bad digital process,
Yeah.
and you introduce AI to that, you're going to have a bad AI digital process.
And you just magnified it because now you
That's
just put
it.
fuel on it.
It's an amplifier, John. It's an amplifier.
Right.
So you're right. How does it make your business better is the question you have to ask. And with most of these softwares, the rollout isn't 3 months. The rollout isn't 6 months. A lot of them, these rollouts are it's 12-month cycle. This is not fast for some of these projects. So you can't just look at how my business operates today. You've got to look at what this is really going to look like in 12 months and how is this really going to change. And then as a owner or as the project owner, you've got to cast the vision of what it's going to look like. Again, getting back to how you're communicating this out with the stakeholders that you have to inspire. You've got to cast that vision for them on where you're going. You have to.
Yep. So along the same lines, let's kind of pull on that thread a little bit more, right? So um, a lot of people, well, let me a couple of different viewpoints here. Number one, there's roughly, depending on who you talk to in the software space, they will tell you there's somewhere between 10 and 12,000 contractors, operating contractors across all things fire life safety. That does not include security, just fire life safety. About 10 or 12,000 contractors. Even with all of our consolidation, we're still between 10 and 12,000. That's number one. Number two, they would also tell you, and this is pretty consistent, that only half, 50%, let's call it 5,000 contractors, are using some form of technology to manage their business. That includes FSM, field software management. They may or may not be on some version of a cloud-based, financial reporting tool.
Mhm.
The default's QuickBooks
I didn't want to say it.
desktop, right? If they're fancy, they go to QuickBooks Online, but that still doesn't hold on a discussion. So
I
50%, so
like
let's call that
invoice. Right.
5,000 contractors that aren't using, field-based software. So it's not about, if I'm going to get my business for sale, I need to do this. No, it's because of what we talked about earlier, AI, number one. it's gonna be a requirement. You have to be using some form of AI to run your business in some form or another. That's number one. Number two, third party reporting. Look what compliance engine and inspection reports online and these other third party platforms are now driving us to.
That's right.
So you have a
Oh, hey,
choice. They're not getting less and
I
less.
can scan my reports, John. I can just scan them in. At least that's the adage, right? Uh, we've gotten to a point, and I think maybe it's code that's driven this. The level of detail that goes into the inspections is massive compared to where it was when I started in the industry. Right? Again, we used to get a two-page fire alarm report and off to the races. And there's some jurisdictions where you can still get away with that sort of thing, but it's not to the standard.
Right.
It's not to the standard. So if you're doing your inspections to the standard, um, having a proper digital, and again, I'm focusing on the inspection side here, but having a proper way to document that information so that you can use the data, you can use that valuable data
Yeah.
for tools like AI tools to help you with your business, but also to be able to load it into well, I was going to say iRoll to load into the compliance engine, right?
Right.
Um, that's a very onerous process today for a person to sit in a chair doing. I would love to digitize that as well, or maybe make it agentic, and who knows what's coming.
Yeah. The world is your oyster. Um, so to your point, yes, I think we see the municipalities driving towards some addition to the standard. You know, some of them might be 10 years old, some of them might be 5 years old, that's 3 year increments, right? Some might be 6 years old. But nonetheless, um, you have the expectation to meet the needs of your local fire marshal or your state fire marshal. But I think the other driver, and you and I talked about this in the past, the other driver behind that, Nick, and I think this is coming, is what's expected from the insurance companies,
Amen, brother.
right? So you own a restaurant, you're underwritten behind some insurance company, they have an expectation around compliance, and now you need to show compliance. And what happens is, that all rolls downhill, and it falls on the fire protection contractor who's done the inspection.
That's right.
How good and clean is your paperwork?
Well, I mean, we saw that. That's what I was alluding to years ago with the Joint Commission, right? The Joint Commission showed up and said, "Well, now you actually have to do it right." And all of a sudden, now we were on the hook to do it right
Yeah.
when that two-page report was just fine 2 weeks ago. And th those kinds of changes happen. Um, I think you're spot on how insurance underwriting is changing. Um, the AHJ is defined as a lot of different things, and the insurance company is certainly one of them. So those requirements are going to be held just as highly as anything else is
Yeah.
in the future. How much further? I don't know.
Yeah, time will tell, right? I think that, and their behaviors will show us. All right, so when you look at, let's look at a broader aspect. When you look at the fundamentals of a tech stack, and you have a clean slate, and you're able to develop, right, make a recommendation. What are you looking for in the aspects of it? Not this, I don't need you to put a brands on what you want to see on, on certain aspects of the stack. When you look at, you know, the pillars, if you will, on the tech stack, what are the pillars that you want your software to be able to address?
Um, wow. Well, I think you outlined it really well in the blog around the different organizational areas where you need to have a focus in your tech stack, right? I
Yeah.
mean, effectively, what we're looking at here is you've got your frontline stuff, you've got your sales pipeline, you've got your administrative focus, and then you've got your ERP and reporting, and that's all great. But it really boils down to how well those things talk to each other. And again, I think I might be reiterating something that you may have already written, but it's the ability to get your data from one application to the other. If those things don't communicate and they don't talk, then you're going to run into problems in
Yeah.
the long run because you're going to end up with double entry or you're going to end up with wrong entry. Your data integrity is going to be completely broken.
Yep.
And now all of a sudden you're going to have a collections report that's wrong. It's going to be attributed to the wrong customer. You're going to have a report that goes to the wrong location. You're going to write a deficiency to the wrong place. You're going to notify the compliance engine that there's a deficiency at the wrong facility, and everything goes completely spooky, right?
Yep.
And then you didn't even put the financials in the right spot, and you invoiced the wrong customer. Boy, oh boy,
Yep.
everything's just golden. Um, that's painting a really dark picture on it because at the end of the day, you have phenomenal people at your organization that make it work, and they fix all of this stuff. They fix all of this stuff with your tech stack. You don't see it though. You don't see them fix it because it gets done and it just all works. Because all of the pain, all of the bad process is hidden by your employees who are ripping their hair out, running around. They look like ducks on the pond, but they're underwater. Their feet are just kicking and kicking because they're fixing all of the problems that you don't see.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I remember walking into a regional fire protection contractor a few years ago, and we're talking about just how they're working around the challenges they have with third-party reporting. And this is before anyone came up with any sort of integration into that platform. And these guys are in a major metro market, and so they had six admins in an office. Their sole purpose in life was keystroking and managing the process to get third-party reporting in accordance with the local AHJ's requirement.
And I bet they were phenomenal at it,
They're super efficient. I went back to the software company and said, "You know this pain you're creating for the fire protection contractors?" And he said, "Not my problem."
right?
I said, "You need to solve for it because that's going to be a roadblock for you as you try to grow your business." So they have solved for it now because there are some integrations that work. I'm not going to say they're perfect, but there are at least attempted pathways to meet the
Things are
short.
improving in that
Yeah,
regard.
they're improving. So I share that. Here's the question, though, because I like what you're saying. Because at the end of the day, it's about people and the strength of your people, right? Your financial ERP is only good as your bookkeeper slash person you've got your office manager running that financial
Right.
ERP, right? Do we have a workflow and a process that we execute every week to make sure everything's getting in that system? Number one.
That's right. And what
Number
happens when that
two,
person's sick?
yeah, yep, and everything stops, right? Number two is, what do we have for, field-based installation work, a project management suite of some sort, right?
That's right.
So,
Uh, it, it's something that
build
your
ops or Procore or
something
whatever.
your techs can interface with, and it's where your service managers and your technicians meet, right?
Yeah,
This is the place for them to communicate
yeah,
about the project, and then for the customer. So that's where all of that needs to be stored and digital.
right. And then your HRS system that you referenced before. So here's a question, right? You and I are very fortunate to be able to work for, at one point in my career, your point, you're still there, a very large company.
Mhm.
I'm not going to say unlimited resources, but you've got access to resources to go deploy the stuff that you feel or the
Truly
business
blessed. I'm
feels
truly blessed to be where I am.
that they need to be effective and efficient and grow because they've scaled significantly in the last 5 years. So in that context, is it an all-in-one platform that does everything and minimal bolt? Because this goes back to your point to say, and it goes speaks to what we said in the blog. You can design any tech stack you want, but the information has to be integrated so it's only entered once and shared across multiple
That's
platforms,
right.
or at least shared at the levels that needs to be shared with. So the question is there an all-in-one silver bullet that works, or is there, more flexibility, more, capability in a fully integrated platform that brings five or six things together to make it work?
Any solution that is a one platform solution, and there are some out there. There are one platform solutions out there, and some of them are better than others. Um, the benefits that you get with that are absolutely that you get this great paradigm, but what comes with that is you have to change your business to fit the paradigm.
Yep.
Your business, and it's not going to fit is really it. I mean, you're gonna have to shave some edges off to make those applications work for you. And I don't see as much value in that. I prefer being able to shave the applications to meet our needs. Um, to use a really weird analogy, but whatever. Anyway, um, I think going monolithic is a absolute option for you. There are, like I said, tools that'll do that, but being having the flexibility to bring in and bring out, um, bring in or bring out your field operations platform, bring in or bring out your inspection platform, bring in or bring out your HRIS platform. God forbid we ever do that again. The ability to be able to do those things it gives you flexibility, number one. Number two, it helps keep your vendors aware that, yes, you're partners, but there's bolts and things can be
Well,
bolts can be.
accountability.
That's right. Which I think is incredibly valuable. In other words, you don't become beholden to one group. And then two, just to harp on this AI thing one more time, um, the way we're not software companies, and us building our own inspection platform, that is a very, very weird thing. It shouldn't really, I would not recommend doing that. I would say we shouldn't be building our own software. We should be using as much off the shelf as we can. That is always a great approach. But that world, that environment is moving and it's changing because of things like Claude Code and the ability to very quickly ask a question of a coding agent and say, I need an application to do this, and it's going to build it for you and it's going to build it well. Is it something that's scalable? It really could be in a very short period of time. And the moat around software as a service, those SaaS applications that we talk about,
Yeah.
that moat is quickly draining, and we're going to be able to just walk across it. Yes, we're going to get messy and muddy in the process of walking across that moat, but it's dry land now for the most part, right?
Right.
And so, you can have somebody who's from the field who knows a little bit about technology sit down in front of this machine and build the thing that you need. Is that today? Yeah, maybe not. But is that going to be a year from now, 2 years from now? I really think that is an eventuality here. So a lot of this stuff that is getting solved for our vendors and our partners, they're going to need to really up their games on the offerings that they bring us because, well, I can just do that myself is going to become the new mantra of every organization. Don't fall into the trap of thinking you can do it yourself without hiring an expert. You're still going to need one.
Yeah.
But but again, that barrier to entry is going to be greatly lower, greatly lowered. So,
One of the things that we talk about in the presentation that I'm doing right now for NAFED with Ken Wisenfeld, we building working on your business, not in your business. Obviously, there's a path around the use of technology, and then ultimately where AI fits in the space today. And we make a point to say, and of course, we're asking the room to raise their hands. But how many of you are using AI today? And when you look at a room of 100 people, you're probably less than 50. All right. Because I think there's some reluctance for them to put their hand up. That's number one. So then if we follow them with another question, how many of you think that your competition is using AI today? And of course, everyone raises
every
their
hand goes up, right?
hand. Right. And so I think it's a pretty good estimate in our industry across the country that um, if you're not using AI today, you're behind the curve already.
Oh my goodness. Yeah,
Right.
you're absolutely right. And if you're thinking about using AI to give a really cool tool to your technicians to do code analysis, you're thinking way too small. You're
Yep.
thinking way too small. That's not really sure that's a use case, but that's not a great use case. A great use case is, I don't know, maybe something that takes an invoice from Service Trade and dumps it into Ariba for you, so you don't have to have an administrator do it.
Yeah.
I like to talk about agents as I like to define them not by what they can do, and this is where what those guys at Tesco are working on is gonna change how we interface with our applications. I define agents, but not by what they can do, but by what they can't. And basically, if they need to go and open a drawer in a filing cabinet at your office, they can't do that. Anything else is on the table, and we can talk about it.
Yeah. I mean, think of it. We give examples at the meeting. Ken talks about what we could do on the back end, like running AR and aging, and just give the reports. That's number one. But number two, you can go far enough from putting bots out there to make the phone calls or send emails. Right? That's
Absolutely right.
easy. That's some of the low hanging
Yeah,
fruit. When you get to, I come at it from a sales, operations, marketing perspective. I said let an agent write your marketing campaigns, both inbound and outbound marketing. Inbound to say recruit people coming to you, recruit customers coming in. right, around branding and
Right.
why they want to do business with you, but then outbound about, your story and your, where, the history of your company and maybe profiles on your employees as to why you're a differentiator. From a
I
sales
like that.
perspective, talking about, writing proposals, right? And the detail that goes into a proposal, right? Why can't you just dump a few things into the agent and say, hey, write a proposal, look at the history of my pricing, you
Oh,
know,
you're
take a look at
absolutely
prices projects we've won and projects we've lost, and you know,
you're on track for tooling and ideas. I mean, you don't even need a special software for that. I mean, you can there's things that you should be wary of. I would say if you don't have an AI policy at your company,
yep,
you need to develop one. You need to develop a strategy around protecting your data so that people don't just say things like, "Oh, I dumped all of our user data into to ChatGPT the other day and it told me." You don't want to do that, right? So develop a policy and I'm not a lawyer, so I won't recommend how you do that, but do some research and define a policy. But with what you were just describing, I mean, that's almost as easy as just dumping it into Claude Cowork and saying, "Here's a couple of files. Can you build this proposal for me?" And frankly, it's going to do it, which is incredibly exciting. It's an incredibly exciting time.
it really is. I mean, it's again about how to just really improve efficiencies, change the customer experience, because what they get in a proposal is fully detailed, and
That's right.
it's going to dot every I and cross every T with regard to the project.
So, John, I want to ask you a question now, and I don't know if
Yeah.
that's
Oh.
I'm gonna ask you a question anyway. So AI is this great thing, right? And I think it's wonderful. I think that the ability to write copy, the ability to take actions on our behalf, I think that those are wonderful things. Um, but what do you think happens when we start taking some of that work? We've got big staffs of people who've been here for a long time. How does that now transition of that labor to an agenda workflow? How do you see that impacting businesses today?
Well, a couple of things.
What do you think we do with that extra labor, I guess is the question.
Sure. Well, I think we got a great opportunity. There's plenty of work to do. So,
Right?
I think a couple of things. One, regardless of where you're at in the deployment of I don't care what you're doing with it, you still need humans in the loop, right?
Operators, right?
Someone who's managing the agents, overseeing the work that the agent's doing, right? If you look at my
Portal
office,
folks.
I've got three computer screens in front of me right now.
I messed up my own analogy.
I missed it because I was talking. Uh, so if you look at my office right now, I've got three computer screens up, and you and I have been in our offices in the past where some people have got four, right? Or screens all over the place.
I have five.
Not surprised. So in that context, now I envision a world where, that service manager is now looking at a series of screens, right? And still is the human in the loop to say, okay, I need to confirm what the agent's doing over here with regard to repair quoting.
Mhm.
And then they're the ones who hit send to the customer, right? For the ones that fall outside of certain parameters, right? But now you've got them managing that. Maybe you create a situation where that service manager now is looking at the dispatch board for tomorrow or the week and saying, here are the exceptions. Okay, so we got to change these in this. But now you create a situation where that person's able to manage the exceptions
Managing
and
exceptions.
not every step along the way. Now, how do you then redeploy the other labor? There's still that work that has to be done. Are there people on your staff that maybe you've brought in to be, an administrative assistant, and to support the office manager with regard to just basic admin work, putting paper in that file you referenced? But hey, maybe they want to go in the service department and learn a skill,
Right.
right? Can they be an inventory coordinator on the floor, and keep track of what we got going from an inventory perspective, then feed that into AI to manage it, right? So that's part of it. The other thing is that, I heard a story from a client of mine about how they took a technician from the field and they want to learn to design. So guess what? Now they're a designer, right? Now you can manage a career where you take a technician, bring them in the office, take somebody in the office that wants to go learn a trade,
Yeah.
right? So I think it just really understanding who your workforce is, sitting down with them and saying, hey, listen, this is going to change our workflow. So much on the team, you're the right person on the bus. What seat do you want?
Yeah. And I
Find
think
it.
that's the conversation that we have to have. I really appreciate where you're coming from with that because at the end of the day, AI agents, whatever you want to call it, harnesses, that's the new one. These things are going to take jobs, right? They are, and they're going to. It's very important for us to try to manage that adoption in a way that is good for our teams.
Yeah.
And one thing that I think that a lot of people are trying to use AI for, and you even mentioned it, right? Sending emails to customers or calling that customer about a collections thing. I believe that the more touch points with our customers that we have that are people to people, that's going to become a real commodity. And
Mhm.
as we get more and more agentic and more of these robot calls that feel like human beings, but we kind of know aren't, right? And that uncanny valley sits in because that's going to still happen. The companies that have the human element and that human touch point, I think are going to be the ones that kind of rise to the top. I think that's where we're going to see a lot of great opportunities is customer service reps. Customer service rep is not the right term, but just really being there for our customer and letting these new tools and these new workflows let them handle the boring, stupid stuff. But now you've got folks that are ready and willing to take a customer's problem and pain point and turn it into something that makes the customer delighted that they got their problem solved. And that employee is now, because they're not worried about getting that PO rewritten that didn't go through the right way, they're ready and happy to answer that customer call as opposed to frustrated that the stupid ERP is not working right again.
Right. I agree with you. I think that, at our core as an industry, we are in a relationships driven business,
Yes.
right? And our effectiveness as contractors is dependent on our ability to build a relationship with our customer,
Yep.
right? First and foremost, around trust. Do they trust us, right? Because we're driving compliance in their building,
That's right.
right? And protecting lives and property. So, in that context, do they trust us? Are we credible, right? And can they have a good two-way relationship with us? And I agree with you. I think that that's what it comes down to. It all starts with the technician because the technician is our brand. That technician is our face. That
The
technician,
heartbeat of any company.
I mean, it is. It really, really is. And so, do we give them the tools and resources to be more effective in managing that relationship? And then now roll it up. Okay, when it's not the technician, who's the first phone call? Now it goes back into a relationships manager or a customer service position. Do they have the information on their five screens to tell them what happened?
Exactly.
Right. So then they can answer the question and solve the customer's problem.
And,
Right.
uh, and now you've got back to the next most important person in your company, right? And that's your customer. So, I mean, your technicians and your customers, those are the pain points that you got to look for. Those are the things to point AI at. Those are the things to digitize. Those are the things in your tech stack that you need to be looking to solve if you don't have one,
Yeah.
right? Or
Yeah.
where those gaps are at least.
Right. All right. Couple things I know because you and I are both up against time. So one last question. All right. If you could wrap up, you know, you're talking to an owner, you're talking to a leader at a business, and they're trying to make a decision about a tech stack in 90 seconds, what are you going to tell them are like the 3 to 5 things that they need to, 3 things that they need to be thinking about, or the 3 most important things as they decide what to do with their tech stack?
Oh my gosh. Oh, they've decided to do with their tech. Talking to a vendor. If they're talking to a vendor about a specific tool, help me out here.
No, so they're coming to you and saying, "Hey, listen, I've got to make a decision. I've been on a platform for 10 years and
Gotcha.
it's not scaling with my business, number one. Or number two, what I was sold off the shelf doesn't fit for my business. Now I've got to make a decision. What do I do next?"
Got it. Okay, so the most important thing is to understand what's actually even out there because it's so easy to get into a silo of what the application landscape looks like. So
Mhm.
number one, you need to phone a friend. I would really encourage you to call John or somebody like him and ask, hey, what is out there, right? So pull your peers, right?
Yep.
What's out there, and then get a feel for what those applications can do. Really have a good idea of what your pain point is, right? If you're saying you can't scale, well, why can't you scale? What is the thing about it that's not scalable?
Mhm.
Have you asked your people? Have you talked to your team members? The simple question of, hey, if you could change one thing about what you do today, what would it be? That simple question is going to be very, very valuable for you
Yep.
as an owner. And maybe you say, hey, if you could change 3 things, right? Really make them dig.
Right.
But ask that of your people first to find out what the real problem is. because the problem may not be in the technology.
Good point.
So I would say make sure you start with your people. Make sure you understand the landscape for the other applications that are out there, but make sure you have the problem that you're trying to solve in hand first before you even start looking. Because if you just go to start to try to find another thing, that's what you're going to get. You're just going to get another thing, and now you're going to digitize the same other thing. It's just going to look different. You don't want it to just look different. You want it to be different. And to make it different, you really need to have the people that are going to operate it be the ones to explain to you what their pains are.
Yeah.
So
One of the things I hear from some owners is that, they pick, solution X because their competitors also on solution X,
yeah.
right?
Oh man,
And
no, I remember when we switched to WordPress for our website because everybody was on WordPress.
uh,
Everybody was using WordPress, right?
yeah,
And it just felt like the right thing to do. Um, and boy, we got a website, but did it move the needle really? No, but we were there with everybody else. And so I would say that eh, that should be a non-factor, at least on your decision-making process. It absolutely should be a factor on what you look at,
mhm.
right? Maybe there's a reason everyone's on it. Maybe you look at it and go, wow, they're all on it because they're bandwagon folks, right? Also, they may be a completely different size than your organization. You can get really far with pen and paper for a long time, for a long time. There's a point when you need to scale, and I think you got to measure that for yourself.
I talked to a former owner who sold his business 4 years ago, and he was still using a grease board, or that's my military term, using a whiteboard in his shop. He had four of them, and he basically told the shop every day where everybody was at, what was going on, the jobs that are active, the service tickets, you name it, and it was paper. He was using a whiteboard and paper. He sold his business 4 years ago because I asked him. I said, "What's your thought on tech stack?" He said, "What's my process, and can I take care of my customer?"
He's
Right?
100%
Keep
right.
it simple. So the next question would be, and I say this from an operating perspective when you look at the consolidation going on in our space. I've said bigger isn't necessarily better. And what I mean by that, you look at the size of a company like Simplex Grinnell, um, 200 offices, uh, but that doesn't necessarily mean you get the same level of service in Cleveland that you do in Chicago, than you do in San Antonio, than you do in Peoria.
Sure.
Right? Bigger isn't necessarily better. And I can use that same adage to software. Just because you're looking at a global brand, right? I'll leave them nameless, but there's a handful, doesn't necessarily mean that's the right solution for you and your business. Right? It goes back to what you said. Ask
Man,
your employees, ask your customers about pain points they have and what we can do better from how we use technology to make the experience better,
that,
internally and externally.
that's right, because that's going to be the scion that tells you where to go.
Yeah.
If you think you know what the problem is, you probably don't.
True. That's a great point. Great,
Trust,
great point.
trust, trust what your people are going to tell you when
Yeah.
you ask them, not just the scuttlebutt. And I think that's important is having those conversations because again, and to your point, not just with your staff, but with
Yeah.
your technicians, also your staff, but your customers. Sit down and really talk to them and hear
Yeah.
what their real pain points are. You might be surprised. It might be something really simple, like this person just never picks up the phone. That's their big beef is they don't like the way that the phone system works. That's it. Everything else is great. Wow.
Or the person that's supposed to be the first person to keystroke all the data into something to enter an invoice, and that person's a part-time employee, so they've got to wait for that person to
Right.
show up to get the work done.
Exactly. Yeah, it always takes 3 days for me to get my invoices after the work is done.
Yeah.
If only it was that fast.
You just hit what best in class, best in class is under 3 days. Um, all right, very good. So thank you, Nick. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, John. This was very fun. I really enjoyed getting a chance to chat with you and just catch up. So
Um,
it was good.
this is awesome. All your contact information is going to be in the show notes. Uh, so
Appreciate
if
it. I hope I gave you something that was worthwhile. I don't know, but I had a good time at least.
that's good, that's good. We were able to keep the conversation under an hour and 45 minutes.
Yeah, that's right.
Because we will get geeked out if we go this
Oh,
long. Thank you. Appreciate the time. All
I
right, be
got
good,
you.
brother. Talk
Take
soon.
care.
Bye
Bye.
bye. That's this month's BTG Mindset podcast. I want to thank Nick Sandberg for doing this one with me. Nick and I have been having these conversations privately for almost 10 years about what works, what breaks, and what's coming next in fire life safety technology. This is the first time we've had it on the record, and I think you can hear why I wanted him on the show. Here's what I want you to leave with. There is no silver bullet in this industry. There is no platform that you can buy that solves the problem for you. The companies that build real enterprise value through their tech stack are the ones that understand their process first, choose tools that fit the workflow, integrate relentlessly, and keep the technician's experience at the center of every decision. And AI is coming faster than most of us expected. It's going to amplify whatever discipline or dysfunction already exists in your business. The question is whether you're ready for that amplification. If you want to find out, here's what I'd ask you to do. First, reply STACK, S-T-A-C-K, to John at MackeyGroupLLC.com, and I'll send you two things: the FLS Tech Stack Readiness Scorecard and the TMG Recommended Tech Stack Guide. 10 minutes, 20 questions, and you'll know exactly where your stack stands across architecture, field adoption, data integrity, and AI readiness. Second, go read this month's BTG Mindset newsletter. It's called Inside the FLS Tech Stack, Tools Changing the Game. The blog gives you the framework. What you just heard gives you the lived experience. Together, they're the playbook. Third, if you're an owner or a leadership team asking the question, are we actually built to grow, or are we just working harder to keep up? Reach out. That's the conversation I have every day, and it starts with a simple call. Again, John at MackeyGroupLLC.com. I'd welcome the conversation. We're dropping highlight clips from today's conversation on LinkedIn all month. The best 60-second moments from Nick and me on rollout failures, the adoption killer nobody talks about, the questions vendors hate, and what AI actually looks like when it pays back. Follow me on LinkedIn so you don't miss them. Thank you for listening. I'm John Mackey with the Mackey Group. This is the Build to Grow mindset. And remember, in this market, the companies that win won't be the busiest. They'll be the most disciplined. Talk soon.